So my name is Shandor Tatary from X-Rite, Sales Manager, Scandinavia. My colleague Maxim Siniak and I would like to present you our InkFormulation software. The main purpose of this web presentation is to introduce you the software we are having for more than 10 years now, from the former Gretag Macbeth and now X-Rite. And we would like to basically introduce you the different versions of the software, the main purpose of the use of the software. Maxim will demonstrate you the main steps, how to use InkFormulation. Then we would like to also mention a few things, what is needed in an ink laboratory or ink kitchen for on-site color formulation and mixing. Then we would like to shortly have an overview on what is the new features of the InkFormulation 6, which is the latest version of the software, versus the former versions. And then after that, we would like to do a question and answer session. You see on the right side of your screen, you see a chat box, and everyone is free to jump in and have questions. And my colleague Klitzia will at the end help us, and we would like to answer your questions as much as possible. So the InkFormulation software is basically designed for ink suppliers and printers. As I said, now it's the version 6, and for 10 years it's basically the #1 software in the world for printing ink formulation and mixing. The solution basically speeds up the ink mixing. The solution helps you to achieve accurate formulation on several different substrates. It can be paper, board, transparent film, or even metallized substrate. So this means that the software itself can be used by various printing technologies: offset printing, flexo printing, gravure, screen printing, etc. It helps the printers and the suppliers to meet the color specifications, so it's very easily helping you and helping you how to mix the right ink recipe for your spot color very quickly and with much lower cost. Probably the biggest feature which my colleague Maxim will talk about is the ink leftover. Many companies and many technologies, by default, they have a lot of leftovers, waste ink, which is basically the leftover, which can be reused and recycled or reused for further future recipes. And this software is helping you to do that. And that's where basically most of our customers, especially for example flexo printing, they are saving a lot of money on reusing the leftover inks instead of throwing out to the garbage or to recycle it. So basically the solution and the InkFormulation software increases your profitability, and according to our customers, the return on investment on this solution is a few months. Sometimes it's 3-6 months, and after that, basically the software is generating serious profits to a company. The software is a modular software. There are basically 3 main packages. The main package that is called Manufacturer is mostly used by ink companies. The Printer Pro is medium or big printers. The Printer Basic is, I think basically it's a light version of the software with limited functionalities, but still an affordable solution for smaller companies who start to plan to do spot mixing on site. And there's also a version of the software which is online. So the software can be used offline with a software dongle on the site, or online, which means that you have to use the internet, and you can connect to the software basically through an online platform and through a server. So basically this can be used by large companies or global companies who would like to work from a central database, and they have different locations throughout the world. There's also different modules available that can be connected to the InkFormulation. For example, the balance and dispensing module helps the user that when he or she makes an ink recipe, that can directly send to a balance or a dispensing system through the software by one click. Who's using these solutions and packages? Like I mentioned, the ink formulation manufacturer is used mostly by ink manufacturers and their suppliers like Sun, Flint, Seekwerk, and basically today's all major ink companies are using the ink formulation manufacturer version. The smaller or mid-sized companies or even large printers are using the InkFormulation Printer Pro. They do not need certain functionalities, so they are using the Printer Pro version with the software, and this has also certain functionalities, for example, ink leftover or liquid ink formulation, etc., which is very useful for them. Smaller companies or offset printers, we recommend either the Printer Pro or the Printer Basic. That's the Printer Basic is the third version. It's a much lower cost software, and it still allows you to do a lot of things if you are starting ink formulation on your site. To those who would like to calculate the return on investment of the software, we have on our website, there's X-Rite.com ROI, which helps you to calculate based on your own cost, the cost of your investment or the return on investment. So if you enter certain parameters, it will show you how much time you waste, how you can reduce your ink consumption, and how much profit you will gain, or how fast your investment will return, pretty much based on your own numbers or your own figures in your house. So that's all basically about the intro and the commercial part. And then I think my colleague Maxim Siniak, who's an application specialist for more than 10 years at our company, specialized also in ink formulation, and the trainer, he will take over the presentation and will go through the software, how it works, how it looks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxim Siniak, and we thought about how in the best way to present the concept of ink formulation. And we decided really to split in two parts. The first part has to be short, what Chandra did actually, just point out the important points, the market segments, and then I would like to focus more on technical details, and show you how live information works. This can help you to understand more precise the concept. It helps you to understand how information works, and what is most important, to understand why we need an information. It's quite obvious that a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of people, they are mixing inks by themselves. Artificially, we can split this mixing process in two different parts. The first part, the company has just one spectrophotometer, and they have they just doing comparison, something with something. And the second part, the second group, the big group, printing organizations, they try to somehow to be on a high sophisticated level and formulate their recipes not based on their eyes or just on a spectrophotometer, just a simple spectrophotometer, but they would like to formulate colors in a much precise way as it's usually common. Both ways are okay till the point when customer raise a red flag and say, "Gents, I need a very precise brand color which has to be reproduced on this specific material." I don't care how you can do this. I don't care your printing process. I just need it right now, and I would like that you prove that this particular color is stable enough during the print run. I have a consistent quality, and what is important, that I will repeat this color tomorrow, after tomorrow, 1 year, because probably I will have a so-called repeated print run. And then if we don't have a recipe here, we don't have let's say written instructions, we didn't save any our measurements, we are getting lost. And then the idea comes, okay, so what we have to do next? And in this particular point, we as an X-Rite can offer a very smart, sophisticated solution, which is called InkFormulation. We have to think about the InkFormulation as not only a software as it is, as we know, like Photoshop or Acrobat. It's really a piece, a very heavy piece, which has to be handled very carefully. And in several minutes, you will understand what I meant. So the InkFormulation, once we start to work with, and you see it on the screen, the InkFormulation quite easily structured. We have on top, we have a menu, and we have here, we have a big functional buttons, which are somehow doubling what is written in the menu. But those buttons, technically, the person who is mixing inks, technically he doesn't even need to go to menu. He can only push these buttons, and then everything will be, maybe not in automatical mode, but everything will be done properly and in proper sequence. So let's take a look generally how the formulation can be done. We know that the typical situation that we are printing with ink set from company A, and we are printing on a substrate from another company, which obviously, let's say we are printing with on a label material which is very glossy with printing inks from the company A. The company A supplies us with not only with inks but also with so-called, sometimes it's called ink profile, sometimes it's called a database. We call it assortment. Technically, assortment is a mathematical description of behavior of the basic inks on a specific material. If you have a look, I have in a database, I have in one of the database, I have several assortments which came from the different customers, because we do also some intensive testing for them, and so on and so on. Let's take our demo assortment. We have flexo and gravure as an example. So this flexo and gravure came from the ink supplier A, and it fit to the very smooth label material. I should select it, and then I just need to go to push this button, formulate basic recipe, and the software prompts me to the next window, which shows me what I have to do. The whole InkFormulation system, and this is one of the biggest difference in between of InkFormulation 6 and previous versions 4 and 5, that this version 6 is based on a so-called wizard. Actually, if you have a look on all or most of our software, we tend to have the software as simple as possible and as transparent as possible, and like our American colleagues always says, out-of-the-box experience. So it has to be very simple, as simple as, again, as possible. And we try to guide the user, the customer, towards the final destination, towards the final goal. And our goal is to have a mixture closest to the reference, to the standard, to the given standard. You see here on this stage, on the first stage, I have different options of how I can capture the information. You see there are several buttons which called measure, color net, color libraries, Pantone Live, LAB entry, CXF. This we call it color entry. We have to enter the information, the target information into the system. We have to give the system a final destination, a final point. The final point is, again, is a standard, is a customer standard or reference. We can measure, and this is what I am intending to do. I take my one of the color from Pantone book, say measure, and I measure the color. Then the software automatically prompts me to the second step, which tells me what substrate substrate type I have to select. We artificially divide substrate types on three main categories: coated, uncoated, and metallized. This has nothing to do with the paper. It's just something to do with the smoothness of the layer, of the top layer, the layer where we have to print on. So far, I would like to reproduce it on a, let's say, on a label material, and the material itself is quite smooth. I selected coated, then press move forward button, and the software again guide me to the next step. And the next step tells me what I have, or I have to digitalize or measure my substrate, or I have to define my substrate. Because one thing is artificially defining a substrate type, and another point is the substrate itself. Because substrate, as you know, from substrate from substrate could have a huge difference. It could be more yellowish, it could be more whiter, it could be more bluish, it could be yellow or reddish, it could be even a craft. By the way, we can also make a very nice formulation for brown craft, which is quite common in packaging, in flexo, in gravure packaging, where we print on a corrugated material. Those materials we have to capture also. I take the substrate from the current assortment, or I can even measure it so far. I execute measurement, and now the software prompts me to another step, which tells me which film thickness, which film transferring factor I have to choose. As a default, or I did predefined several thickness factors which are somehow correlated with my production workflow, and I will explain you again a bit later what it is. So far, I have my laboratory, I have my proofing system, and I have I have to formulate the recipe in the laboratory before I go out to the machine. And this is what I actually try to do. And you see, nowadays the thickness object, we call it thickness object, is ticked to a laboratory proofer. I say OK, yes, and I have my basic components from supplier A, and I do just simply formulation. And the software gives me a number of recipes. It could be less, it could be more. Right now I have quite a lot of different recipes, and now all these recipes, they are unique. it's not repeating recipes, it's just unique recipe which differ from each one is differ from another. It can be different in component, it can be different in the percentages, it can be different in another things, but all of them, they are unique. You cannot find identical recipes in this list. So this is the first recipe, and the last recipe is 49, and all of them, these 49 recipes, please have a look here on this on the right corner, just below the recipe calculated picture. You see that all of them, they are differ also in their delta E or metamerism M1, M2 factors, or in price. Always we have different recipes. So now we have to select the recipe and make a drawdown. We call it drawdown. We just need to make a physical proofing of what software recommends us. On this first tab, we are always getting a recipe which is we call it first prediction. This is mathematical recalculated recipe out of the basic components. So we got this recipe. Now we have to prove this recipe. We make a drawdown with our laboratory proofing and system, and with viscosity of 20 seconds. And the logical second step is to make a verification of this. And this will be a second button, the second big button here, where it says basic corrections or basic recipe correction. I just press it, and now the software again, it has a visual-based structured menu, ask me to measure the recipe which I did mixed physically. I will try to do it. I just simply, I don't have a precise recipe. I just take another color or nearest color from the book, executing measurement, and I'm getting the color. Then the software says, okay, Maxim, would you like to have a formulation out of the same components, yellow, orange, and black, which is in existing recipe, or you would like to have more components, because might be you are not very precise if you still use only 3 components. I say, okay, so I need a full picture, and I would like to put all components inside. I say, okay, then press follow, and software gives me a correction or several corrections in this particular case. Again, all corrections, they are different from each other. But the main point is that the software is trying to adjust my color, my physically proved color, which is printed on this particular substrate with the physical inks, with my environment, to the target color. And obviously the correction could be done in different ways, but the way of InkFormulation is offering put additional components, or make or put to existing components put another quantity. And you see here, so the software says, okay, so you need to put more transparent white, and even put another green component which was not existing in the original recipe, but it's coming up here. And the point is, because we're always operating with a different spectral curves. All this, the information is basically based on a spectral curve model. It's not LAB, it's not LCH, it's not density. It is a spectral curve. And our goal to have as much as closest, you see the red curve is a target curve. the recipe which we've got, the blue one, you see how far the blue one out from the existing target curve. So the goal of the software, create a curve which fit or which is very, very close to the target spectral curve. And this is what actually you see from this picture. The green curve is a correction. Very good tool for analysis. And this is a new window which was not popping up in version 4 and 5 in InkFormulation. It was in version 4 and 5. To some of you who are using who used before those versions, with version 4 or even version 5, the correction, this one, was not given. It was a recipe, this one, and the target color, always. There were no correction spectral curve. There were always only 2 spectral curves on the screen. Right now, we did change a lot, and this is one of the distinguishing points if we compare current version of InkFormulation with the previous versions. Okay, we have to mix the ink, and we have to make those recipe once again on the same material and prove how good or bad we are. The logical question can come: how many iterations we have to do when we try to adjust our recipe to the target color? Practically, there are no standards. There are no written instructions for that. But based on a case study, we recommend to have not more than 2 steps. If we see, or if customer sees that after the second step he is still far away from the target, or the recipe is drift him out from, or gives him always a bigger delta E, then something definitely wrong. It can be wrong with his formulation, physical formulation. It can be wrong with his materials, because the information, as I said, it has a assortment. An assortment, basically, if we have a look, if we deeply have a look, what assortment means, the assortment is simply describe. It's a physical description of every single ink. And once ink, my orange, which is described here, is really dramatically differ from what I physically use. Let's say I use assortment from company ink supplier A, but physically I have physical inks from supplier B. This model doesn't work because supplier B 100% has different pigments. They have different concentrations. They have different dye strengths of inks and have everything different. So the coloristically speaking, those inks physically, they are completely different. This is why we have to be very, very careful and check if we are correctly done with assortment, and if the assortment is fitting this mathematical description is fitting to our physical inks. Actually, the same story will be applicable for offset. I just select the offset assortment. I even have to, I don't need to select another target color. I just need to go to basic formulation. I skip this step, select, and software gives me exactly the same steps. And the software now gives me recipes which are, you see, completely different from the from the recipe standpoint and also from the component standpoint. There are no solvent here. There are no transparent the transparent white as it is, but it has different components. But still, we're able to formulate the same target color. And the correction recipe or corrections or step of corrections are exactly the same as for Flexo. So there are no difference. This is why, coming back to what Chandra said, with InkFormulation, we are really fit to the different printing process. We don't need to invent wheels once again if we do have in one company, if we do have Flexo and offset inks. We don't need to be confused. We just simply switch from one assortment, from one color description, from one process to another, and we can still have the same target but do a new formulation. So this is why the information is quite flexible, and we can have as much as possible assortments as we are handling in our companies. Again, technically, I've never saw any companies who are working with more than 5 assortments. Obviously, it could exist, but I've never saw, frankly. The five assortments the printing companies can handle very easily. Everything which is more, it's from logistical standpoint, it's quite difficult. Not from the formulation standpoint, but from the logistical standpoint, it's quite difficult to handle. Again, just finalize this topic. The InkFormulation is absolutely flexible. It's absolutely fitting to any printing conditions. Even in my database list, I have gravure assortments, and you see there are several assortments which were made for gravure to be printed on metallized gold and metallized silver and transparent film. Also, I have OPP or PE white. There is a screen printing here. It's not a problem to handle all of those assortments, and you see how many assortments I have. I just need, once I have another printing process is in use, I just switch the assortment and make a formulation based on this particular assortment. Of course, there are several settings which are differ if we compare, let's say, offset and Flexo. That's 100%. So we call the tuning tools, and I would like to show you for offset what kind of tuning tool or tools we have. Usually when we print in offset, it does matter packaging, or do we print offset cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and black only, or spot colors. It doesn't matter. The matter is that we always have to have the proper film thickness, the amount of ink on a substrate. And sometimes, I mean, not even sometimes, it's quite often that the press operator, he doesn't have any figures. He just by feeling thinks that he has to print with density or with density of 1.7. But it's nothing to do with a real film thickness. It's just the density, which is a very helpful tool when the press operator runs the press, but it has nothing to do with a film thickness. So in color laboratory, we have to define, once we start with InkFormulation and we are going on this precise way of formulation, we have to define the film thickness on a press. It's quite easy. The methodology is quite easy. I don't want to stop on it. That it's quite easy methodology, which is provided by every press manufacturer, starting from unknown Chinese companies and coming to Heidelberg, Emanron, to the big KBA, to the big really solid companies. So we do a formulation. I just keep this again, we take the same target, and here you see that we have an option to make a formulation and to be very specific to the press condition. Let's say technically the newest high-speed printing presses, printing machines, offset printing machines, they will never give you the possibilities to move ink more than 1.3, maximum 1.4 gram per square meters. And I saw a lot of misunderstanding when the ink supplier, they supplied spot colors to the production workflow, and they don't care at all about the film thickness. And then they can get a very nice color in color laboratory, because in color laboratory they can print even with 1 centimeter of ink on a paper, but on a press you have no chance to do this. So this is why it has. So when we do a formulation, we have to be very, very careful about this small tuning tool. So, and always we can once we define the film thickness, we can say, okay, I would like to have 1.2 film thickness, and then say move forward, and the software gives us recipes with precisely film thickness we need. You see here on a bottom right, you see 1.2. So we can tune the recipe to the really production workflow, and this is our goal. The goal of all laboratories, not just to produce inks or produce some colors, but really the goal of the color laboratory to produce, first of all, to produce inks or recipes closest to the target color, and secondly, make this recipe suited to the production workflow, which is quite important. Again, based on my previous example, if you have, you can get any film thickness on your paper, but the question is it possible to have the same on the press? That's the biggest question mark. The same point we have, the same tuning point we have for Flexo. Once I select the Flexo assortment, I still take the same reference color and make a new formulation. Move forward, move forward. You see, now we have, for Flexo, we have 2 parameters which are quite important. I mean, most important parameters on the press. We have a film thickness, which is always related to the analogs, and we have a viscosity parameter, which is actually related to the consistent, or let's say to the dilution of inks on the press. Both we can control. Again, same story as with offset. Once we don't control the film transferring factor or film thickness on a Flexo press, once we don't control viscosity, the whole InkFormulation system has less sense than it has to, because we are not been able to tune then our recipe to the production workflow. And without tuning, I mean, it's good to have, but it will not bring same benefits as we have now with the controlling tool. Returning back to the version 4 and 5, with version 4 and 5 in formulation, the film thickness model for Flexo was not that sophisticated as now. In the previous version, it was not possible to describe different analogs rollers. Now it is, or it can be easily done. Viscosity calculation. With version 6, we have much wider viscosity range, and we can put the viscosity information much say, much easier than in previous version 4 and 5. Even though we're saying, okay, so now we have a recipe which we did print for the or which we have to prove in our laboratory. I did the proofing, and then suddenly the production says, okay, Maxim, we need to print this color onto the Enlox roller 120. What should I do? Previously, it was more or less impossible to make this tuning. Nowadays, I just need to select the proper Enlox roller, and please have a look on the screen, and you see the recipe did change, and the information always tries to keep same delta E, same viscosity calculation, same color calculation once we change the film thickness. I just select different Enlox rollers, and you see that every time the recipe is changing. So it means that we can easily do it, do tuning to the precise tuning to the Enlox roller we use. Viscosity is the same. Just have a look. I put more viscosity and transparent, mostly transparent white and solvent concentration. They change because the software is trying again to keep the color. It's quite rare when any of this colored component will change. The mathematical engine inside of InkFormulation is quite smart, and it tries to keep the same color, the same shade, the same lightness, chroma, and hue, and just play a bit with transparent white and viscosity and solvent. Under solvent, it doesn't matter which solvent it is. It could be water, or it could be alcohol, or any other solvents we use in production. Epoxypropanol and so on. Technically speaking, it shouldn't be. So the viscosity in our laboratory has to be similar to the viscosity we are printing with. Because if you have a really big difference in between of laboratory environment and the printing environment, again, we are coming to the same point when the information is not really helping us. It might be even bring some other things which is annoying us and might be disturbing our daily process or whatever. So those has to be really set and has to be really fit. Out of that, we have very interesting, then we just create a recipe, and now we decide, okay, we have next to the press or somewhere we have a so-called mixing station, which is a station with pumps and dosing system, which dosed inks to our printing machines, to our production. We did approve this recipe, and now just press this button and the recipe will be sent out to the mixing station. And then mixing station depends on the construction, or depends on the vendor. It will start mix color in automatic or semi-automatic mode. Quite easy and quite good done. Once we do analysis of our production, we have a lot of opportunities. Beside of the spectral curves which might be not very attractive in terms of the daily management, or let's say daily quality control. because the person obviously has to understand what does a spectral curve means. And out of the experience, no one tells these shapes which you see on the screen, are they good or not. But what is might be important also in terms of the communication with the customer, we can check our color in terms of being metameric under different illumination sources. Because obviously when we talk about the packaging, it does matter. Offset flex, so gravure, screen printing, large format printing. We always think about, okay, so we produce color or recipe in our laboratory environment, which has to be set to according to the standard with illumination of D50 or 5000 Kelvin. But then we move our color outside. And the packages can be easily placed on a shelf in a mega store, somewhere in a shop, and who knows what type of illumination they have. We approximately think, okay, so they have the regular shop. It should have a fluorescent lamp. So, and under the different illumination types, the color could look differently. I would like to show you, to find a good example where we can immediately see the big difference. Okay, even here, the recipe number 27, which is still okay, and you see we have on top of every drawdowns, electronic or virtual drawdown, we see the delta E AB D50, which is actually our laboratory environment, D5000 Kelvin, and we did a great job. We've got delta E 0.9. Once we move under the tungsten lamp, which we usually use at home, which always gives us a bit reddish perception, the delta E is raised. Okay, it might be not big, but once we move to under the fluorescent light, which gives us a bluish impression about the color, we see that the delta E is raised more or less dramatically, 2 times. And the delta E so far for us, it's a criterion, it's a quality criterion. Before it was a human eye, which can be different from every participant, every person to person. Nowadays we have a software, we have a hardware as a spectrophotometer, and the criterion is delta E. And it's already a bit critical, 2.1. It means that the color is quite sensitive. So the recipe, which contains orange, red, yellow, quite sensitive to the different illumination types. So technically, we should select less metameric color, which give us less differences under certain illumination types. So again, it's as an analytical standpoint, it's quite good. Also, what I found out of my experience, there's also a very good tool when customer is not being able to recognize what we're meaning under the different illumination types or under the different ambient conditions. So that's a really a simple tool. Might be not a perfect, but at least a simple tool to show him a trend, what he will get on the different illumination, and why it's not possible to create the color which will be looked identically under the different illumination types. Another interesting tool for analysis, again for deep analysis, not for daily use, is so-called film film thickness and delta E correlation. So as you can see, the figure on the screen shows us how particular ink behaves if we increase or decrease film thickness, and what's happening then with delta E, with our quality criterion. And the quality criterion always, once we move to left or right, or maybe not always, but in 95% when we move on left and right, it will rise. It could be raised faster, like here, or it could be raised lower, slowly, like on this picture. And you see, once we have a film thickness which is a bit increased, but we still can stay or stick with more or less the same delta E. It means that technically on a machine, this particular ink will be less sensitive to the film thickness, to the production environment, which tells us about the stability of the ink. So it's a point, again, a point for technologists or the formulation person to analyze additionally this particular recipe. Okay, now several words about different criteria we have for the formulation. Usually the standardized delta E formula we have is delta E based on LAB or AB from 1976. We also can check or change the scale from LAB to LCH. See here. So, and then all our information will be given with a lightness, chroma, and hue. By the way, the newest Flexo standard is based on the new delta E formula, which is related to LCH model, color model. The offset standard is still stick with the old LAB value, old LAB formula, but the new, which might be in the next several years, will be obviously based on delta E 2000 and LCH model. Then we have, if we need to change a formula, suddenly the customer has his specific need, and the customer is quite educated and clever, and he said, no, I don't need the delta E, the regular delta E, I just need the delta E CMC, for instance. I just select delta E CMC out of this, give a criteria or the relation factors to L and C, usually for graphical industry it's 2 and 1, and say OK, and then you see here we got a delta E CMC definition. Again, we can tune the software to the particular customer needs. Once customers say, okay, I need a delta E 2000, no problem, we have delta E 2000. But again, we have to keep in mind that, and the conversation which formula is better is not really, so it can be endless discussion, frankly. It's those formulas are discussed in a technical commission 130 in ISO committee since ages, and still there are no consistent meaning or consistent decision which formula is better, or which formula the production has to stay. Every single formula, it has benefits and plus and minuses as usual. The current formula in all standards beside Flexo is delta E from 1976. The new Flexo standard from last year, delta E 2000. All other formula CMC CMC is actually the in the past it was a standard formula for Procter & Gamble. Nowadays they start to move to the to delta E 2000. When this process will be finished, nobody knows. But nevertheless, they still, and you can have a lot of you can get a lot of information from such big brands like Procter & Gamble. was a delta E CMC comparison. So please be careful once you try to compare something with something and really to select the right formula. Again, there are no definition of what formula is better. The delta E 2000 is the formula which give us most or the best correlation with the human eye. But still it works very badly in a gray area. So the gray area is still a problematic area for all formulas and also for delta E 2000. So please be not very enthusiastic about the delta E 2000 and say, yeah, now all our production will be based on delta E 2000. You have to be very, very careful about it. First of all, because there are only one standard is existing, only for delta E 2000, and secondly, you have to read to interpretate delta E 2000 properly. What else we can have in InkFormulation? In InkFormulation, we can use so-called ink leftovers. So the ink leftovers, that's a portion of inks which are coming from the printing press. After every single ink run, we have, if you print with spot colors, we always have some ink or inks left. So in terms of InkFormulation, they call ink leftovers. And imagine if we have a maybe for offset is not so critical, even though there is a critical point, but for in Flexo it's really a big question mark, and especially if you try to speak about the ROI and some economical points, we always have to think about how we can redo or rework the inks which are coming from the press. And this is a big story, a big chunk. But this junk can help us to improve, first of all, to improve the economical consistent, if you want, or economical standpoint, because we can rework inks. And usually on a Flexo, the ink or the set of ink has to be prepared with several kilos at the beginning, right at the beginning, with several kilos more than it's required for the print run, because it has to go. The inks are liquid, and they have to go through the whole circulation system. And every time after every single run, we have 3 to 5 or 8 kilos left from every single ink. And if we have a 10 color press and we run a 10 spot colors job, so it's already, I take for instance 3 kilos per unit per color. We have 30 kilos left only from one job. And with InkFormulation 6, we can easily rework those inks. And this is also a very interesting point when we compare InkFormulation 6 with the previous version. Yes, in version 5 we had this option, but with version 5 it was not. There were several technical issues with using ink leftovers within version 5, and even though those customers who are used ink within InkFormulation 5 all these ink leftovers since years, they use it might be not on 100%, because again, because of the technical limitations we had in version 5. Now we don't have those limitations, and now we can reuse all ink leftovers without any problems. Just as an example, I stick with the same assortment. Okay, I will take another color and show you what we can or how we can use another option of getting target color, I take it from the color library. We usually, with InkFormulation 6 and with InkFormulation 6 and color quality 6, we always supply the Pantone guides. And you see those Pantone guides, the old formulas, Pantone PMS matching system and Pantone Plus, the newest system, is in. Plus we have HKS, this German company who produce similar libraries than Pantone, and we can use it also here. The Pantone Goya is included also, and all those libraries we have within different filter sets. So I would select some fancy color, save coated. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. And you see here I have a small box, checkbox, which says use ink leftovers. I just activate it and immediately I have my ink leftovers. I did prepare it before, but just to show you how we can use it, it can be as many as possible. So I can select all of them, or I can select only one or two or several, and then go forward, and software gives me, or should give me, much more recipes than it usually have to have. And every single recipe will include now ink leftover. It can be one. Oh, now I have only her. That's a bad example, but good. I have one recipe. Okay, I have one recipe, but in fact it has to be several recipes, and every single recipe has to have ink leftover. Ink leftover always is pointing with a dollar sign, and it indicates that this is ink leftover. I will try to take another color. Maybe it's a bit critical because we don't have a pure red inside. I will try to take now the color from the system called Pantone Live. I hope it works. Yeah, unfortunately it's not uploading for some reasons. Okay, or I can even put LAB entries. The LAB entry is also a feature which was not available in the previous versions, and on this particular part I can easily have, just imagine I have in the company I have a pre-press department, and the pre-press department, the designers, those guys, they have no clue about the spectral curve. They even don't know what it is, but they clearly know what LAB or LCH means. And once they create a color on a monitor, they can operate only with LAB, nothing else, and they can give us the LAB values or LCH values, and based on this entry we can make, or we can try to make, a formulation. Again, I put all of these ink leftovers inside. Hope it works better. Okay, now it looks better. So I have number of recipes, and as you can see, all those recipes, they have at least one ink left over. So it means that we can really reuse our stock very fast, and even we have to keep the stock as empty as possible. And that's a really good, interesting feature to improve the production workflow and to make the color, or the, let's say, to make economically, to make our production more profitable. So once we did a formulation, we can save the recipe. I put it as a default, give a specific name, EFS webinar, then say OK. What else I could do? Now my goal is to have quality control. The quality control means that next to the press or in the color laboratory, I have to control the reproduction of the color. Together with the InkFormulation, we have a built-in software called Color Quality, and I have this color quality already as a background, and now I just press this button and say OK to send to the color quality. We'll move to the to another application. Now you see the color quality. And now the color quality has more or less similar user interface as InkFormulation. And now with the color quality, I can say get from InkFormulation. And I see that there are already several colors inside. I say EFS webinar, what actually I did send previously to InkFormulation. I have to select the select the customer. Say OK. So organize a job. Here it is. And now I can control my job, my production, based on this formulation. So actually this will be my target color, and now I start to measure. And you see what's happening. So I can put really all my measurements inside. And I will have a statistic. And statistic can give me LAB values or delta E or any other options from the list. I can put some graphs on it. I can, let's say, I can have a statistic. I can have a graphics. So all this information I can have on the screen. So in terms of the quality, in terms of the quality manager, this way is quite preferable, because you always have a link into the, or between the ink laboratory and the production. Not just by doing measurements and then not saving these measurements. It can create some critical points, because just imagine the ink laboratory did create a recipe which can perfectly look in their environment. Then this recipe is going on to the press, and then in half an hour the press operator runs back to the ink laboratory and say, guys, what's happening? I cannot get the same or the right color. Please show me your color. And then they do measurements and they see, okay, yeah, there is a difference, and then they do immediately some corrections, which is might be okay for the production, but it's going out from the concept of ink formulation and color quality, because then we have a very specific environment where the person or the personality or the human factor is always involved in this process. And there are no documents, and once the customer comes and say, please show me your report, how the complete job was printed, because maybe I'm not satisfied, or I have ISO audit, and the company cannot do this because they just have an ink laboratory, and the ink laboratory is not linking to the quality or quality department, or they don't track any measurements beside recipes. So this point has to be linked, and as I said, we have both. We have ink formulation and the color quality running together. Both software are always or mainly used within the spot colors controlling. Beside of this, with an ink formulation, we have, and this is also a unique feature for version 6, because with the version 6 we have jobs called yeah, I hope I have these jobs here. Okay, we have jobs called it has to be so it's ISO jobs, where once I open the ISO job, they are always sorted based on a paper type, black or the backing material, and a filter type. Once I open the job, I see my cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and also red, green, and blue. So I can track my job, if it's necessary, according to the ISO also. And you know, the ISO standard is describing only cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. There are no descriptions for spot colors. But nevertheless, within the color quality, you can easily track your recipes or the production according the ISO standard, which is also unique and which was not properly done in the previous version 5, color quality 5. Okay, now several words I would like to tell you about just before we close the session. I would like to tell you several words about the laboratory equipment, just briefly. Once we're thinking about the ink formulation, itself, yeah. Once we think about the ink formulation itself, it will be wrong if I say you just need the software. The software is a piece, is a small piece in the complete in a complete picture. For the laboratory, beside of ink formulation, we need to have additional equipment which helps ink formulation to calculate or to be precise. We have to actually, the ink formulation is a container. It contains the primary information from the ink supplier about the ink behavior, and we have to give the company, or we have to give the software, understanding what's happening on the particular environment. And that's important because otherwise, if we are not precisely describe what's happening, the software gives us the same unprecise answer. And that's why we say as a way of as a list of the for the laboratory, you can see on the screen. We say the most important components beside of spectrophotometer and the software has to be laboratory scale, because we always have to operate with some figures. We have to create a recipe, let's say in milliliters or in milligrams or in grams. For mixing, it's not a kilos. It's always a small amount of ink, and we have to be precise in terms of the formulation. Then we have to have a laboratory proofer. We have to have laboratory proofer always a tool which help us to get the very smooth drawdown or drawdowns. Then we do recommend to have a viewing booth, because with a viewing booth you can easily visually see the problem or problems in between of reference and the mixed ink. Sometimes it's very important also if the production workflow, especially for Flexo, is quite huge, then obviously it will be good idea to have so-called mixing station, which I partly mentioned during my information presentation. And of course, people who are understanding what's going on, not just people from the street, as cheapest as possible, but really people who knows what color management, let's say color management is, what InkFormulation or formulation is, how they can do the production and so on. We artificially split spectrophotometers into the two big segments. The linear optic devices, which is including SpectraEye 53939, and today, as you know, those devices are obsolete, and we replace them with Exact. So the Exact is doing the same as all these three models did, plus a sphere optic devices, which could be from the previous model range, SP devices, Color XCH, Color i5, Color i7, which might be top devices. But once we print on a metallized substrate, once we print on with metallic inks, it has nothing to do, or it will be more or less impossible to control, even to make a recipe with Exact, for instance. So we have to have another sort of devices called sphere optic devices. For every single substrate, which is completely different from any others, we have to have a dedicated assortment. We have to have a dedicated color description. Imagine you, just as a simple primitive example, we have a coated paper which has a very smooth surface, and we have an uncoated paper which has rough, let's say rough surface. The color distribution and the behavior of the ink on both are completely different. And it's wrong to say that one assortment can cover all needs. It's absolutely wrong, because it's impossible to mathematically describe the relation in between of coated and uncoated material. It might be possible in some range, but once this range is, and this is a very tight range, but once we are going out, it's more or less impossible. Same for metallized substrate. For metallized substrate, we have to have spherical optic devices. We have to have a dedicated assortment. For craft, the same. For bleaching carton, once we have assortment for uncoated paper, it will not properly fit to bleaching material, to bleaching carton. Usually those assortments in most cases, usually those assortments are supplied by ink suppliers. All European and even Middle East and Far East ink suppliers, they are working with InkFormulation. I would say in Europe 100% or maybe 99%. I know only one company. It's actually they also use our X-Rite software. So they are all used for printing needs. They use InkFormulation. Then once we need to get a drawdown, we have to mix inks, and those mixing inks we have to wait. Let's say for offset we usually recommend to have 2 grams for mixing. So it means that it makes no sense to, I mean, it maybe technically it could be better to have, let's say, to mix 1 kilo of inks, but technically it's not necessary to have 1 kilo waste then. This is why we do recommend to have 2 grams for offset, and this is why it guides us to the very precise scaling system. It's 4 digits after comma in milligrams, so it's 0.1 milligram precisions. For flexo and gravure, especially for flexo, where we print with alcohol-based inks, the precision could be less, which is good because then the price for scaling system will be less. But nevertheless, we have to keep in mind, as less precise scales or scale is, the less precise the recipe we will get. So it's always a gambling, it's always balance, and we have to keep this balance stable. For offset, we always say again 4 digits, and it's approved, worldwide approved concept if you want, or recommendation. Same for flexo and gravure and for screen printing. Those figures are not coming from the air. They are really approved, practically approved figures. Laboratory proofing. We artificially split those laboratory proofing systems into 2 main categories. The manual devices, cheap, good in reproduction, but the problem is that they are very depending on the speed, and the speed is not always constant because it's manual device. Plus, it depends on the let's say of the human mood. Because when you have a bit more pressure, you will get more ink on a surface, and this can be a bit critical if the print shop would like to produce a very high quality production. So this is why we do recommend semi-automatic units for both for offset and flexo, and that's also a kind of standard we have now. Let's say as an example, for wallpaper production, to have a semi-automatic unit, it might be a very expensive, and it's absolutely unnecessary because they are printing even with high quality printing machines, gravure machines. They are printing on a very corrugated material, on a very rough material most of the time. So for them, the manual device is more than okay. But once we print labels, once we print some specific colors on packaging materials, on transparent films, we would recommend to have semi-automatic unit. And the same for offset. This semi-automatic unit is a must. It's even we don't discuss that manual has to be done. Then they might be the best way and simple ways to make fingerprints. So that's why we always recommend to have semi-automatic units for offset.
Excuse me, Maxim.
Yep.
Excuse me, this is Shandor. I just wanted to let you know that our time is running out.
Yes, I have the final slide, and we are finished.
Thanks. I think we need to summarize it, and then we might have
Yeah,
questions and
sure,
answers, hopefully. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Sorry.
So, and this mixing station, as I said, it's quite important to have for the companies who are using a really huge amount of inks. The mixing station has nothing to do than the barrels, which has basic inks, and some pumps which are pumping in proper quantity inks, and then is going to the barrel where the final recipe will be assembled. And the viewing booth. The viewing booth, again, the viewing booth is quite good once we try visually control our recipes. That's important point we have to know. Okay, that's all from my side. At the end, I would like to mention also that we do offer a lot of trainings, and also we do training, on-site training for our customers, for brand owners, also in information color quality, also for our devices. So that's a kind of service we're trying to move on with. Yeah, that's all from my side. Chandra, do you need to, or do you want to add something?
No, thank you. I think that's pretty much everything right now on InkFormulation. I think that if someone is interested, then we can continue on one-on-one. And as Maxim mentioned, we are offering on-site trainings and services, and for those who are interested, we can talk about further detailed presentation together in the future.
And all our attendees are now seeing the InkFormulation software page on X-Rite.com. So you can visit the page, and here on the right side you can see there are more details if you want to go back and read later. So the specification regarding support, regarding training, the library. You can also download the brochure and print out and share with your colleagues. So Chandra, Maxim, I guess we are done with the presentation of today. And of course, you can be back to Chandra by email or by phone for further information, appointments, demo, and for any needs on training.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and have a great day then.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.